Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has challenged Russian President Vladimir Putin to meet in person for peace talks in Istanbul on Thursday, after Putin rejected a demand for a 30-day ceasefire and instead said Russia was ready for direct negotiations.
볼로디미르 젤렌스키 우크라이나 대통령은 블라디미르 푸틴 러시아 대통령이 30일간의 휴전안을 거부하는 대신 직접 협상을 거론하자 이를 받아 목요일에 튀르키예 이스탄불에서 직접 만나 평화회담을 할 것을 요구했습니다. So in Korean, we ended that whole phrase with 요구했습니다, which is to request.
Yes.
But in English, the verb used is to challenge.
Yeah.
And so there's a slight connotation difference with the Korean and English there.
There is, but they're at war.
Yeah,
And it is combative. And especially, I think, over the last month or two, we saw Volodymyr Zelenskyy have a very rough meeting with Trump and J.D.
Yes.
Vance. And then at the Pope's funeral, we had that iconic picture of Trump and Zelenskyy huddled over in the middle of a room on those two chairs. And now we have, possibly for the first time since fighting began, a meeting between Volodymyr Zelenskyy and Vladimir Putin.
That's right. And President Trump did have something to do with it, I believe. Tell us more.
Yes, so the Ukrainian president is saying that they need a ceasefire. And they have to have a ceasefire. And Trump has been calling for a ceasefire. That demand was set out on Saturday. And it feels like the pressure is on. And so Putin, he had an unusual sort of response. The response came at 2 a.m. In a statement read out to journalists, where he was accusing Ukraine of breaking previous ceasefires. But despite that, he said that we should meet for talks that could take place this week on Thursday in Turkey, in Istanbul. It's hard to know what's going on. There's a lot of power play that's been happening over the past few years as the conflict has continued. Everybody wants peace. The question is, on whose terms?
그래요. 자, 그러니까 지난 주말에 일단은 EU 국가들과 볼로디미르 젤렌스키 우크라이나 대통령이 함께 푸틴 대통령에게 30일간의 ceasefire, 휴전을 제안했습니다.
네.
받아들이지 않았고요. 푸틴 대통령이 대신에 난 직접 만나서 이런 얘기 할 거면 직접 만나자 이런 얘기를 했습니다. 그러자 우크라이나 대통령이 그러자 받아들인 거죠. 영어식으로는 challenge라고 표현을 했는데 우크라이나 대통령이 내놓은 이 도전장을 받아들이면서 어떻게 보면 또 다른 도전장을 내놓은 겁니다. 그렇게 만나고 싶으면 나는 이번 주 목요일 날 이스탄불에서 만나겠다 이렇게 얘기를 한 거고요. 그 사이에는 이제 미국 트럼프 대통령이 둘이 당장 만나라 하는 그런 이제 얘기들도 좀 했습니다. 그래서 약간의 역할이 있지 않았느냐 그런 얘기들도 있죠.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. This could mean the start of lasting peace, or it could end in disaster. I think the world will be waiting with bated breath on Thursday.
그래요. 그러니까 어떻게 보면은 푸틴 대통령이 나는 직접 만나고 싶어라고 했을 때 우크라이나 대통령이 노라고 말할 것까지 감안했을 수도 있는데 볼로디미르 젤렌스키 대통령은 좋아 이렇게 받아들인 거죠. So he said, yeah, I want to meet in person. What does that mean?
Well, we meet in person every Tuesday, Sue.
We do.
We end up in the same studio, in the same room. I'm not doing it over the internet. I'm not a face on a screen. We're face to face, literally. So if you meet in person, you're meeting offline. You're meeting in real life. You're in the same room with each other.
그래요. Meet in person or to meet personally. That's the expression I think they actually used. 직접 만나다. So if you meet online or if you meet virtually, 컴퓨터 화면상으로 만나는 거고요. What about instead you do something?
Exactly. If you do something instead, that means you're not doing the thing that that people maybe thought you were going to do or people were expecting you to do. Instead, you do something else. So in this case, it was a case of rejecting the ceasefire. So they wanted him to accept the ceasefire. Instead of that, he did something else, and that's what he did was said Russia was ready for direct negotiations.
So instead would be 대신에 in Korean. 이 경우에는 이 30일간의 휴전 대신 직접 만나는 거는 할 수 있다.
네.
라고 푸틴 대통령이 얘기를 한 거죠. So Putin rejected this demand for a 30-day ceasefire and instead said, I'd like to meet in person.
Yeah.
And Zelensky said, okay, let's do it.
Well, you explained that instead of me.
I explained it instead of you. Yeah, exactly. So I think it'll happen this Thursday. It's only a few days away.
It does seem like it will take place.
See.
But the question is, what happens during this meeting?
Yeah, that's right. All right, here's the headline again. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has challenged Russian President Vladimir Putin to meet in person for peace talks in Istanbul on Thursday, after Putin rejected a demand for a 30-day ceasefire and instead said Russia was ready for direct negotiations.
Do you want to read the next headline instead of... No,
I
not
think
instead of me. I
Could
should
you
do
read it instead of me? Yes, please.
Spanish authorities have told more than 160,000 people near Barcelona to stay indoors after a fire at an industrial warehouse containing pool cleaning products released a toxic cloud of chlorine over a wide area.
스페인 카탈루냐 지방에서 수영장 청소용품 보관 창고에 화재가 발생해 유독한 염소가스 연기가 넓은 지역에 확산되자 당국이 바르셀로나 인근 주민 약 16만 명에게 자택에 머무르라는 외출 금지령을 내렸습니다. Tell us more.
It's a very scary situation, and so Spain's Civil Protection Service told everyone, keep your doors closed, keep your windows closed within their area. They closed off the roads for 5 local districts across the coast. They shut down train stations so that nobody was going to be getting in, nobody would be trying to get out. They wanted everyone to remain in place because chlorine, this toxic chemical, can be very, very dangerous.
Yeah, it can.
One person, the warehouse owner, he talked to a radio station and said, it's very difficult for chlorine to catch on fire, but when it does, it's very hard to put out. So there was a risk. If people were out and about, if there was a spark, if there was a naked flame, then there could have been a disaster. And so they shut down the whole area, got 160,000 people to stay indoors.
What is staying indoors?
It's when you don't go out. Indoors and outdoors. Indoors is when you're inside a building. Outdoors is when you're outside the building. So sometimes we get weather advisories. When the pollution is bad, they recommend that children, the vulnerable and the elderly stay indoors, meaning don't go out.
Stay가 머무르다라는 뜻인데 stay indoors, 집 안에 머물러라라는 얘기겠죠. So this order or this recommendation was made. 우린 말로는 이제 외출 금지령이 내려졌다.
네.
이렇게 해석을 하고 있습니다. The reason is because of the toxic chlorine.
Yes, toxic, a song by Britney Spears, but also meaning something that is dangerous or poisonous or is going to cause us some kind of harm. It's not good for us at all. So if you see the word toxic on a bottle, you do not want to touch it or consume it or do anything with it. You should be very, very careful. If a person is toxic, that means they can cause harm to others, not necessarily through violence, but maybe through their actions, through their words, through their behavior.
That's what Britney Spears was talking about, a
She
toxic
was.
relationship, I think, with a previous boyfriend.
And the opposite, a very good word to know if you've got kids, is non-toxic, non-toxic. If you see that on a toy or on clay or something like that, it means if your child licks it or puts it in their mouth, it's not going to be dangerous. They shouldn't eat it, but it's not going to harm them.
Exactly. So you always want to go for those non-toxic toys.
Yes.
Obviously. And I think toys should just be non-toxic in general.
Well, I think in our childhood, you did have to watch out a little bit.
Yeah.
But certainly nowadays in Korea, I hope all toys available are non-toxic.
Indeed. toxic, toxic. 독성이 들어있다라는 뜻입니다. 유독성이죠. So toxic chemicals, 유독성 화학 물질이 되겠고. In this case, we're talking about chlorine, but it could be anything. 또 사람한테도 쓴다고 아까 표현해 주셨는데.
Exactly. The most common word I think associated with it would be waste.
Yeah,
toxic waste. Which needs to be disposed of properly.
네, 독성 폐기물이 되겠고요. 사람이나 관계에 관해서 톡식이라고 하면은 정말 안 좋은 관계를 얘기합니다.
네.
이 사람이랑 같이 있으면은 나한테 또 안 좋은 영향이 많이 오고 그럴 때 이제 this person is toxic or this relationship is toxic.
Yeah, or that's a toxic friend.
That's not a good friend at all. 그래요. It's as if you're being poisoned by them, isn't it?
A little bit, yes.
Yeah,
It's a horrible thing, a horrible word to use, so be very careful if you're using it about people, but certainly if a substance is toxic, stay away.
That's right. Well, here's the headline again. Spanish authorities have told more than 160,000 people near Barcelona to stay indoors after a fire at an industrial warehouse containing pool cleaning products released a toxic cloud of chlorine over a wide area. All right, let's move on to the final headline.
China has revised its marriage rules to simplify paperwork, eliminating the need for household registration books, allowing couples to register at any eligible registry nationwide, and requiring only ID cards and a declaration that they are unmarried and not closely related.
중국이 혼인신고 규정을 개정해 서류 절차를 간소화했습니다. 이에 따르면 부부는 호적 등록 위치와 상관없이 중국 어디서나 적법한 시설에서 혼인신고를 할 수 있으며 신분증을 제시한 다음 미혼인 점과 친족이 아닌 점을 명시한 선언문에 서명만 하면 신고 절차가 완료됩니다. It's getting easier to make your marriage official, I guess.
Yeah, I wish it was like that when I got married. It was,
Was it very
lots of
complicated?
paperwork,
Oh,
yes.
I see.
But the good news is in China, and even for multicultural couples, it's getting much easier. So in the past, they've had to use this household registration book. That was necessary for your application. Now all they need is their ID cards, and they have to sign a declaration to say that we're not married to anyone else, and we're not closely related by blood within 3 generations. And the great thing is you can register anywhere. It doesn't matter where your household registration is. You can marry anywhere in the country. And if your partner is not Chinese or is a resident of Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan, or another overseas Chinese community, you can also get married much more easily. So it's lifting a burden in terms of paperwork and making things easier to get official.
What is paperwork?
Oh, Sue. Why did you have to ask?
Is it just paper?
Well, it's paper that you have to work on. It's documents that you have to prepare. If we're talking about an office situation, your paperwork is the forms you have to fill in or the documents you have to make. A lot of it's electronic nowadays, but we used to have big piles of paper on our desks.
Yeah.
So when you apply for a passport, when you apply for a visa, for a marriage application, you need to prepare a certain set of documents.
Yeah.
And that's the paperwork.
서류 절차를 paperwork라고 하고요. 그걸 간소화하는 게 simplify. So now in China, the paperwork has been simplified.
Yeah, you just need your ID and a signed declaration.
그래요. 기존에는 호적 위치, 그 호적지에서만 혼인신고를 할 수 있었는데 이제는 어디서든 할 수 있게 되니까 아주 심플해진 거죠. So they eliminated the need for what we talked about before.
Yeah, and if you eliminate something, you get rid of it. You destroy it or you make it disappear. So here, they're getting rid of the need for these books. And they're making them obsolete.
Yes. Elimination 그러면은 이제 그 탈락하는 거잖아요. 그래서 eliminate라는 게 없애다. The need for something, 무언가의 필요성을.
Yeah. And if you're a fan of game shows, like these days, we've got all sorts of different game shows where you compete. Every week a contestant gets eliminated.
That's right. 그런 의미의 탈락을 제가 얘기한 거였고요. 여기서는 eliminating the need for household registration books. 이제는 이 호적지에서만 혼인신고를 해야 할 그런 필요성이 없어진 겁니다. All right, well, here's the headline one more time. China has revised its marriage rules to simplify paperwork, eliminating the need for household registration books, allowing couples to register at any eligible registry nationwide, and requiring only ID cards and a declaration that they are unmarried and not closely related. Well, that's it for our headlines with Paul Matthews this morning.